of the crystals. It was like perfect synchronization. So the things are starting to be found. They said there's going to be 2 more. I think they said it was by 2002 or 3. There was going to be 2 more large networks, like the ones that were just found in Chihuahua, Mexico. In other regions, they didn't say where they were going to be found, but they said there will be 2 more. And there's one of them that's amethyst, that actually, they're not all selenite rods. So there's going to be some interesting discoveries as we move along, as long as things stay stable enough where we have a chance to enjoy the discoveries. Okay? So this is Atlantis, or this was Atlantis. That was Lemuria. That was us, South America, Asia. And at least we still have, and it's kind of funny because in the Atlantean period, in my lifetimes there, in our simultaneous time, I have spent a lot of time in Lojas. That was kind of where I spent a lot of time, as far as many of my simultaneous incarnations were in that area. And also over here in what had been Lemuria before it became islands. At least we have England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales left, because they are a part of Atlantis. They are the part that remained visible. And there has been a whole big important thing of hiding things on maps. That as soon as they did the 9558 BC house cleaning here, literally things like maps that showed where parts of things were confiscated, and then false maps were evolved, and we were gently guided into creating this illusion of what we think was our history. We were helped all along to create the false history by having people having contact. Most of our history and our religious books were channeled. All right, that's the easiest way for them to communicate with people here from the Phantom Matrix. If they can get into your field, they can move part of their energy field, like pretend you have your astral body, it's like your ghost body, and you can move it over to the side. Well, you could put it in somebody else's body if you wanted to. This is how the distortions came most of the time in our history records, in our in the religious records, how they twisted books. The whole thing, there was at one point released some of the story, and it's going to be released in not this book that's coming out, but the next one. The story of Moses and all of that. This was a riot. Galactic Federation was at the center of that one. I mean, part in the Red Sea and all this. Well, you could say God did it, if you want to call God Galactic Federation. All right? The things that have been attributed to God in our Bibles and in our holy books were not acts of God. That was, except, well, I guess they were. There was a truth to that. The Anunnaki groups are calling themselves our gods. And in that sense, yes, they were acts of those gods, but they're not our gods. When the walls of Jericho came tumbling down and Babylon was flattened and all those things, these were photosonic technologies that were used. These were things that actually had almost like ray guns, okay? They were physical technologies. They weren't some god saying, you were bad, so we're going to get rid of you. This was part of the war games. So at this point, we're faced with this huge revelation of history that kind of, when it started to come through and they were giving me layer after layer of this, I was just numbed, like watching the trade tower things. Just numb. Yeah, and I had enough incarnational memory open to know they were right. Because I remembered being in those times, and I could never figure out how come I had these memories. How did they fit with this history that we're telling us? Because it didn't seem to fit. It made sense with what I knew inside. All of us have these memory banks. They're not active yet, but the more we work with DNA activation, the more we will get our memory of these times back. There's a part of each of us now, in the Atlantean period, in the Lemurian period. If we're here, it implies that we're also there, because it's simultaneous. When we incarnate, we come in simultaneously into 1,728 different time vectors. So we have 1,728 different selves, and that's if you're just human. That's if you have 12-strand pattern. If you're an indigo, you have lots more than that. Indigos you can look at, some have a 12-strand and another 12-strand. Some have 12, 12, and 12, and some have 12, 12, 12, and 12. With 1,728 that go with each one. Right? So those other selves of you exist right now with you. They're alive in their time frames, like you are, and they're a part of your avatar consciousness. When you get to be fully an embodied avatar, you will know yourselves as all of those selves. Your concept of self expands. You'll realize that, yeah,